Meanwhile, Fox and Friends are trying to break the news to their audience. And what you can see, and now that they've released the transcript, and we have the transcript, we're going to read you parts of it because the transcript's pretty bad. And we should say that we don't even know if it's actually the transcript. Richard Nixon, when they released transcripts of those recordings, I hate to break it to you, they weren't accurate. They left out a couple of things. At the bottom of this transcript, it says, just so you know, not necessarily verbatim. Even with that, it looks pretty bad. And so the whistleblower complaint is going to give us a lot more. But I mean, this is pretty obvious what he's doing in this transcript. And we will talk more about it. But here is Fox and Friends trying. This is going to be the strategy. The strategy is going to be, we can't do anything but release all this stuff. So what we're going to do is say, it's not a crime. It's not a crime. It's consistent with everything else that I've been doing. Why wouldn't I want to know about this? This is going to be the argument. Now, it will work for the people watching Fox. Of course it will. But I don't think it's going to work beyond that. And I think that is the miscalculation that they are making. Although, to be fair, they have done everything they can to prevent impeachment from happening. But here is Fox and Friends giving you a little taste of what this is how they're going to try and shove this down the throats of their viewers.
The Washington Post broke a story yesterday afternoon that the president ordered Mick Mulvaney, his acting chief of staff, to freeze $391 million in military aid to Ukraine before he talked to the president. And that doesn't look like good timing to a lot of people. But Fox News has confirmed that apparently the president wanted to make sure that the new president of Ukraine understood that if you're going to get this money, we really want you to end corruption before we give you that dough.
Now, what's interesting about this? This is like they are trying to train their audience to believe that the presidency, in terms of money, functions more or less like my giving my daughter allowance functions. Like, I'm not giving you allowance this week until you commit to me that you're going to clear the table, put the dishes from the sink into the dishwasher, not just leave them at the sink.
It's a little thing called good government.
Right. The problem is that this is not Donald Trump's money. This is money that Congress earmarked for foreign aid with not the conditions that Donald Trump decides. You can't do that. You can't unilaterally decide, like, I've got some other things that I just want to put, I want a button, put a little dot the I on this one. We promised them a certain amount of aid because they gave up their nuclear weapons back in the day. Promised them other things too. Maybe not, we probably shouldn't have, but we did. When Congress appropriates money, they do it by statute. There's no little asterisk that says, oh, and if you have some personal stuff you want from the guy, you can also ask for that too. But they're not going to raise that.
Give you that dough. And then there's some other stories out there about whether or not other allies and other countries were actually kicking in as much money as they should on the world stage.
Now, does that sound like the president? Every day, really since he was on Phil Donahue in the 1980s. Where are our allies? Why are we paying the full way? He says it in the NATO meetings, the United Nations meetings. He says it in private meetings. He says it in interviews. I have no problem with the timing. To me, the timing makes total sense. Before I meet with the new president, who's been a comedian, and he comes out of nowhere, I'd like to know that before you get your $400 million, you're going to do a few things, and I want to pressure our allies in the interim, Mr. OMB Director and Chief of Staff, to pony up some money. After all, Russia's more of a threat to Western Europe than they are to the United States.
Well, pause it. Now, wait a second. There's no consistency between, I'm holding the money off until I check out if you ask him to do some things.
going to
In
try
the
to open
meantime-
up a yuck club. Not with this money, my comedian friends.
In the
We're going to have rules.
meantime, I'm also going to go to the other people and say, you got to kick in some cash too. But contingent upon him doing some things for me too.
For good government.
I got no problem with that. Now, of course, to be fair to Kilmeade, we do all know that Donald Trump ran on a drain the swamp in Ukraine platform. He was so upset about the potential for corruption in Ukraine. This is what he's always been focused on. Here is Ducey a little bit more like, oh, okay, we get one little.
Well, it's just tricky because sometimes comedians get elected and they're nice guys, but they spend all the money on comedy.
Sometimes
so you got to be really
that's right.
careful.
Like, what's the drink minimum thing? I need to know all about that. And here's Ducey going like, now there is this one thing that if it, it could be bad, but this is one I think that Ducey would like to take back probably.
If the president said, I'll give you the money, but you got to investigate Joe Biden, that is really off the rails wrong.
Right.
But if it's something else, it would be nice to know what it is. Mark Levin.
Yeah,
no,
Mark Levin, I bet.
No, Joe. No, Steve. You messed up, Steve.
Yeah, Steve, wait a second. Hold on. If
Get
I
back
said,
to Brian.
Wait, what were the exact words I was supposed to have said? Because I didn't say exactly that. I said something that was a little bit different. .com/majority.
All of them.
But no joke, folks. Speaking of Blinkist, I don't know if you're like me. I don't know if you spend all of your waking hours following on Twitter different stories that are happening in the news. But there are times where you also need to basically say, kids, enough, leave me alone. And I'm going to unplug from the news. I want to read some nonfiction that actually will help me get through my day in some fashion. That will up my assets, as they were. Well, Blinkist is an app that compiles the key takeaways from thousands of nonfiction books. So everything you need to know is condensed down to 15 minutes, either in reading form or in listening form. Blinkist is super unique because it works. Not only can you read it on your tablet, you read it on your computer, read it on your phone, you can listen to it in all those places as well. You'll find everything from health to self-help titles to history and business books, including in your Blinkist library. For me, I checked out here's what he said. We're going to read more of this, but just we'll turn to the actual specific moment where they mentioned Biden. He's talking about having the Attorney General and Rudy Giuliani call. Because Rudy Giuliani is the U.S. government's nothing. He's Donald Trump's personal attorney.
He's special rapporteur for
corruption.
Comedian,
He's the special anti-comedian corruption
comedian governance
chief
model.
So I will ask him to call you along with the Attorney General, of course, because my personal attorney and the Attorney General do a lot of things together when it deals with foreign corruption, of course, like every other administration. If you could speak to him, that would be great. The former ambassador of the United States, that woman was bad news, and people she was dealing with in Ukraine were bad news. So I just want to let you know that. The other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son. That Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So not me, but a lot of people. And so whatever you can do with Attorney General, that would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you could look into that, it sounds horrible to me. Later, in the next time that he speaks, then the president goes like, oh, yes, no, of course. Right. Absolutely. You're the best. I agree. Corruption bad. Yes. You, president, good. He just basically went on. He played Trump quite brilliantly, I think. Although it's quite clear that I don't know if he fully gathered what the code was.
I learned from you in election so much.
And then he goes, well, about the ambassador again. Well, she's going to go through some things. I will have Mr. Giuliani give you a call, and I'm also going to have the Attorney General Barr call, and we will get to the bottom of it. Okay, so in other words, like every time Trump speaks in this, he repeats, I'm going to have Barr and Giuliani call you. Okay, here it is. I'm sure you will figure it out. I heard the prosecutor was treated very badly, and he was a very fair prosecutor. So good luck with everything. Your economy is going to get better and better, I predict. You have a lot of assets. It's a great country. I have many Ukrainian friends. They're incredible people. And
before this is all over, maybe we'll get a Netflix package for you.
Dorsey, those sneakers at your friend's house, look into those. I like those. They're good sneakers, if you know what I mean. And I predict, Dorsey, that your bank account may grow. How do you like that? Bank account might grow. So that's good because you've got great assets and I like those sneakers. So there it is. That's basically it.
And then Dorsey is the Ukrainian president. He goes, this is how impeachment will affect Biden.
Exactly.
Exactly. You understand me.
I love